Fission Radio Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Vision radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us. I am filling in for Barry Prince, who is still out, I guess calls it the bush. He's out picking mushrooms. So we will see him, I think, next week or the week after. Perhaps he's would like to get back, but he told me yesterday they're kind of freaked out because they go out into the woods and and pick mushrooms. And he was saying how nothing is the same. Things aren't growing where they used to grow. I think this is what we're looking at now at the Age of Fission, is things are just not the same. And that's the reality. Things are not the same. And it's like upside down world now. And we just have to deal with it and learn how to readjust. The growing cycles are going to be different. Winters are going to be different. And I guess, in America, things are really different. You know what I mean? Like, we are really having to face a whole different kind of a world today. We have never really had to live in a time where we knew we were being contaminated and our elected officials did nothing about it. Nothing. The Republicans seem to have Stockholm Syndrome. They keep protecting their abuser. I cannot understand them. I think the news yesterday was pretty interesting that even George Bush Jr. came out and said something about Trump's attack on American values. Like, how bad is it when George Bush Jr. looks like a good guy? Seriously. I thought because, to be honest, again, not well prepared because I wasn't really expecting to be on today. I'm going to do the nuclear alerts. There is not a lot going on with the nuclear alerts, but what's really interesting is what they call now they have a non-emergency. They have something called unplanned contamination. How about this one? Westinghouse Electric Corporation, of course. RX-type uranium fuel fabrication. This says the facility is Westinghouse Electric Corporation, and it doesn't quite tell us where, does it? Oh, Columbia in South Carolina. And it says this happened on 10/18. Unplanned contamination, non-emergency. Individual contaminated while offloading uranyl nitrate. 24-hour event notification based on 10 CFR 70.50B1 for an unplanned contamination event that requires access to the contaminated area to be restricted for more than 24 hours by imposing additional radiological controls or by prohibiting entry into the area. On October 18th at approximately 10:05 EDT, while operators were unloading a LR-230 container of liquid uranyl nitrate, the liquid offload hose became disconnected from the container fitting. The event resulted in uranyl nitrate exposure to one operator and a release in the offloading area. The estimated quantity spilled solution was 6 to 8 gallons. The operator used the emergency shower and was declared by the health physics and medical personnel, operation and health physics personnel, cleaned up with the spill of low-enriched uranyl nitrate. While decontamination efforts are easily complete, efforts continue to assure that there is no smearable contamination. Smearable contamination. Wow. Uranyl nitrate. URANYLNITRATE. Uranyl nitrate. Wonder what's going to happen to that guy in a month from now. Don't worry, he's all cleaned up. Exposure. I'm just going to say exposure. I want to see what it does to you. Common name. So this is the history state of New Jersey. Okay, so this is what we'll just go right there. It popped up first. Common hazard summary. Uranyl nitrate can affect you when breathed in and may be absorbed through the skin. Contact can irritate and burn the skin and eyes with possible damage. Breathing uranyl nitrate can irritate the nose, throat, and lungs, causing coughing, wheezing, and or shortness of breath. High exposure to uranyl nitrate can cause nausea, vomiting, muscle weakness, and convulsions. Uranyl nitrate may damage the liver and the kidneys. Oh, wow. Repeat exposure to uranyl nitrate may affect the brain. So 6 to 8 gallons got affected, and it may affect the brain. It is a yellow radioactive solid with no odor. It is used in photographic processes, glazing, ceramics, and radiation shielding. So what else does it say? Work exposure limits. It tells us the limits, ways of reducing it. So, hold on one second. Acute health effects. Let's see what it says. Acute health effects. The following health effects may occur immediately, shortly, or after exposure to uranyl nitrate. Contact can irritate and burn the skin and eyes with possible eye damage. Breathing uranyl nitrate can irritate the nose, throat, and lungs, causing coughing, wheezing, and shortness. And high exposure to uranyl nitrate can cause nausea, vomiting, muscle weakness, and convulsion. Chronic health effects. The following long-term health effects can occur sometime after exposure to uranyl nitrate and can last for months or years. Cancer hazard. So listen to this. This is cute. There is no evidence that uranyl nitrate causes cancer in animals. This is based on test results presently available to the New Jersey Department of Health and Senior Services from published studies. Reproductive hazard. There is limited evidence that uranyl nitrate is a teratogen in animals. Teratogen. I wonder what that means. Until further testing has been done, it should be treated as a possible teratogen in humans. Other long-term effects. Uranyl nitrate may damage the liver and kidneys. Repeated exposure may affect the brain. So don't worry, guy. You're going to be fine. It's perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about here. Medical patient underdose in Wisconsin. Oops, sorry about that, guy. Texas Health and Services. What does this say? Non-emergency. Alarm system breach. That was on 10/10, event 10. Notification date was 10/11. Alarm system breach. The agency had, on October 10th, 2017, the agency had an alarm system breach at 11:35 CDT. This is the Texas Department of State Health Services in Austin, Texas. Security called our program stating the alarm to the source room was alarming. I went down to the room to check it out. I checked the door and saw it locked, turned off the alarm system by entering the code, and called the security company and provided information to stop law enforcement from responding to the location. The Postal Service technician was next door, and I asked her who opened the door. She said the contractors asked her to open the door, and she stated she went to the building operations office and got the key and opened the door for the contractors. The Postal Service technician, okay. And she said she went to and she said when the alarm went off, the door was closed and the security guard was informed. That was when our program received a call to go down there. An investigator from our program stayed with the contractors and set the alarm when they were finished. A complete investigation will be completed. Investigation is ongoing. Update will be provided. So don't worry. It was just the mail lady getting in there. Nothing to be alarmed about. Accident mitigation. It says this event has been retracted in Illinois. 9/8 was the event date. We probably read about this. HPCI, high pressure control valve. That one, remember we read that the other day. And then the very last one reported today on October 20th, Mississippi Division of Radiation Health, University of Mississippi Medical Center, non-emergency on 10/18. Patient underdose. Okay, so that's that. You know, we're going to have on our show on Tuesday, Donna Gilmore is going to come back and talk about H.R. 3053, which is hopping its way through Congress, folks. So pretty soon you will have nuclear waste dumped in your neighborhood too. Won't that make you feel special? Seriously, we really are living in a time where our leaders are gaslit. They are doing absolutely nothing about stopping any of this. They all think it's just perfectly fine. Perfectly fine, non-emergency. I'm reading what the reports were yesterday. Medical underdose, something declared inoperable, Palo Verde nuclear generating station, defects in compliance. Gee, this isn't a problem. 10/11, we read this, defects, HPSI motor lead insulation gouged. This is just, it's so unbelievable that they really just take a list. We're taking a list of all the things that's wrong. It's really too bad. It's kind of like when people start talking about, you know, the man that calls himself president. It's just a list of all the stupid stuff, all the things that he's insanely doing. So I don't think you guys could hear that. I was clicking on news, and it went through. So I thought what I'd do is look around the news and read some news for you, because this is pretty interesting, the way that old Donald Trump is walking along here. I saw a story on Foreign Policy, which is a new online magazine, to me anyways, that I have recently been recommended to. And I'm just going to type in nuclear and see what pops up on Foreign Policy. And I'll bet you 2-1 we get something. Nuclear Renaissance Redux. What's this report? The Art of the Nuclear Deal by Emily Tamkin. Is nuclear Iran a threat or a distraction? Now, this is one. Obama's disappointing nuclear security legacy. Let's just see what they have to say by Neil Jowick. We'll open that in a new tab. Hyping North Korea's nuclear threat. Pakistan needs a nuclear future, not a nuclear deal. Pakistan needs a nuclear future, right. We don't need nuclear at all. How the Israelis hoodwinked JFK into going nuclear. Wow. America's nuclear weapons infrastructure is crumbling. Well, let's see what that says. Obama's disappointing nuclear security legacy. I can't read about him. Let's read about this one. America's nuclear weapon infrastructure is crumbling by Robbie Gramer. Leaky roofs, faulty ventilation, and encounters with snakes and rodents are par for the course at U.S. nuclear weapons facilities. Wow. President Donald Trump wants the United States to be top of the pack with nuclear weapons. But his goal already hit a snag. The infrastructure that supports the country's nuclear weapons is crumbling to alarming levels, a congressional panel warned Tuesday. Much of the infrastructure that supports the U.S. nuclear weapons program, including labs, production facilities, and weapons storage complexes themselves, were built 6 decades ago. The aging buildings require constant upgrades and renovation to ensure the safety of government employees handling the weapons and to secure the weapons themselves. But it's not happening. There's a $3.7 billion backlog in deferred essential repairs to the U.S. nuclear weapons infrastructure, overseen by the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, a semi-autonomous arm of the Department of Energy. The maintenance problems are quite alarming and pose a risk of dangerous nuclear accidents, said Congressman Tom O'Halloran, a Democrat from Arizona, during a House Armed Services Subcommittee hearing on infrastructure needs of the nuclear security enterprise. The warnings come as the U.S. government begins to pour over $1 trillion into modernizing its nuclear weapons stockpile over the next 30 years. It's a top priority for the Energy Secretary, Rick Perry, who once ran a presidential campaign calling for the abolishing of the Department of Energy entirely. But the sorry state of NNSA facilities may bog down the modernization efforts from the start. Much of the NNSA's facilities date to the Eisenhower administration and in some cases the Manhattan Project era, said Frank Klotz, administrator of the NNSA and Undersecretary of the Energy Department. I think there is no greater threat to the nuclear security enterprise than the state of NNSA's infrastructure, he said. That's a big statement. No greater threat. As they maintain or research nuclear weapons, NNSA employees are subject to leaky roofs, faulty ventilation, and even, quote, routine encounters, unquote, with snakes and rodents, according to Michelle Reichhardt, a top managing contractor for nuclear weapons sites. The NNSA has sounded the alarm bell on its aging infrastructure before, and in years prior, Congress has set aside funds to curb the ballooning deferred maintenance issues. But it wasn't until last year that the NNSA halted the growth of the problem. Congressional members of a panel appeared willing to earmark further funds, but the NNSA ran into a roadblock of its own making. Congressman Mike Rogers, a Republican from Kentucky, asked Perry and the NNSA in January for a list of specific infrastructure projects that in the intermediate range could use stopgap funding. As of Thursday's panel, the NNSA still hadn't provided the list to Congress. That is disappointing, Rogers told Klotz at the hearing. When the president's budget request is transmitted to Congress in a few weeks' time, we will then be able to provide additional details, said an NNSA spokesperson to Foreign Policy when pressed on the agency why the agency hadn't furnished a list yet. So let's see, what's their excuse? When the president's budget request is transmitted to Congress in a few weeks' time, we will then be able to provide additional details. Why is that? Beyond the crumbling infrastructure, security experts worried the weapons themselves could be at risk. History's proved them right in the past. That's the end of the story, or no? No, there's a bit more. In 2012, 3 anti-nuclear activists included an octogenarian nun, Megan Rice. They don't even name her name. That's annoying. Let me read that again. That really makes me mad. In 2012, 3 anti-nuclear activists, including an octogenarian nun, Sister Megan Rice, I'll add her name in myself, broke into one of the country's most secure nuclear weapons facilities. That was secure, the Y-12 National Security Complex at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. In an embarrassing lapse in security, they spent 2 hours in the facility painting protest signs on buildings that processed weapon-grade uranium inside. The incident sparked immediate rebuke from Congress, and the Department of Energy pledged to take action. So that's a bit of misinformation. They didn't spend 2 hours painting signs. They got blood from a hospital, infant's blood, and they wrote on there, nuclear kills, and waited for security. They didn't spend 2 hours painting signs. This lady needs an education, man. Meanwhile, that $1 trillion nuclear weapons modernization program will require thousands of warheads to be shipped across the country. But the office in charge of shipping those weapons is mired in problems, as a new Los Angeles Times investigation revealed. The Energy Department's Office of Secure Transportation grappled with widespread alcohol problems from its workers, who are responsible for driving nuclear bombs in aging semi-trucks across the country. Oh my gosh. So we got a bunch of drunks. That's really amazing. Let me click on this hyperlink, see if it'll show us that story in the New York Times, in the LA Times. This troubled covert agency is responsible for trucking nuclear bombs across America each day. What date was this? Was it done? March 10th, 2017. I'm going to read it. If anybody wants to give us a call, you can, by the way. It's 718-717-8106. Otherwise, I'm going to keep reading. This is, as I said, the Los Angeles Times, March 10th, 2017, by Ralph Vardabedian and W.J. Heinigen. Contact reporters, so you can get in touch with them. The unmarked 18-wheelers ply the nation's interstates and two-lane highways, logging 3 million miles a year, hauling the most lethal cargo there is, nuclear bombs. If you saw a picture of this truck, you guys, you would not recognize it as a truck that hauls nuclear bombs. It's just a big truck with metal sides on it. There's nothing in it to let you know there's a nuclear bomb in there. The covert fleet, which shuttles warheads from missile silos, bomber bases, and submarine docks to nuclear weapons labs across the country, is operated by the Office of Secure Transportation, a troubled agency within the U.S. Department of Energy, so cloaked in secrecy that few people inside the government know it exists. The $237 million a year agency operates a fleet of 42 tractor trailers, staffed by highly armed couriers, many of them veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, responsible for making sure nuclear weapons and components pass through foggy mountain passes and urban jams without incident. The Transportation Office is about to become more crucial than ever as the U.S. embarks on a $1 trillion upgrade of the nuclear arsenal that will require thousands of additional warhead shipments over the next 15 years. The increased workload will hit an agency already struggling with problems of forced overtime, high driver turnover, old trucks, and poor worker morale. Forced overtime, that's why you have poor worker morale. Raising questions about its ability to keep nuclear shipments safe from attack in an area of more sophisticated terrorism. We're going to be having an increase in the movements of weapons in the coming years, and we should be worried, said Robert Alvarez, a former Deputy Assistant Energy Secretary who now focuses on nuclear and energy issues for the Institute of Policy Studies in Washington. We always have to assume the worst-case scenario when we are hauling nuclear weapons around the country. The worst case would be a terrorist group hijacking a truck and obtaining a multi-kiloton hydrogen bomb. Yeah. The terror threat is significant, said one high-level Energy Department official who spoke on the condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to discuss the program publicly. If you are in one of the communities along the route, you have something to worry about. And you should see the route, folks. It goes right through the heart of the country. Like, the usual. Just look on the main maps of up and down the 5, over the 84. Just look at a map of the United States and think of the main thoroughfares to get from one end to the other. That's the routes. It's basically they have on this map dotted nuclear weapons facilities and military bases. So there's the military bases all along the northern border. There's 3 of them, 2 military bases on the southern side, 2 on the middle, and all along the routes are weapons facilities dotted. Wow. The only place that it doesn't have any of these routes is in the northeast of our country and in a major portion of Texas and in Florida, and that's it. Every place else is really crisscrossed. It's unbelievable. The Times reviewed government documents dating back 2 decades and interviewed dozens of government officials, former military officers, and armed control advocates to examine the agency. The picture that emerges is an organization hampered by an insular management, a crisis of morale among the rank and file, and outdated equipment. Among the findings of the Times investigation are, and these are bullet points, the agency is 48 agents short of its planned staffing of 370 as a result of budget cuts. Weapons and tactics classes were canceled in 2011 and 2012 for lack of money. More than a third of the workforce has been putting in more than 900 hours a year of overtime, which former couriers and Energy Department officials say have contributed to the breakdown in morale and rapid turnover. 900 hours a year in overtime. A third, that's outrageous. That's really outrageous to drive people like slaves. In 2010, an inquiry into the Department of Energy's Inspector General found widespread alcohol problems. It cited 16 alcohol-related incidences over a 3-year period, including an agent on a 2007 mission who was arrested for public intoxication and 2 agents on a 2009 mission who were handcuffed and detained by police after a fight in a bar. In 2014, the commander of the agency's operation at the Y-12 National Security Complex in Tennessee threatened to kill an employee in an altercation, but no disciplinary action was taken. That's the same facility that Megan Rice broke into. Wow. The agency's top executive in 2009 was charged with drunk driving after police found him parked on a sidewalk with an open bottle of beer and blood alcohol concentration of 0.15%. Wow. Nearly twice the legal limit, according to a New Mexico court records. Wow. The agency's top executive, that's who that was. The agency's truck fleet is antiquated by commercial standards and well past its operational life under even the department's own guidelines. About half the tractors are more than 15 years old. The high-security trailers used by the agency are even older, designed before the current era of terrorist threat. Oh, that makes you feel secure, doesn't it? How the agency wound up in this state is a story of neglect that begins at the end of the Cold War. Wah, wah, wah. That is the same old song they've been telling us ever since on every single issue related to nuclear. After the Soviet Union broke apart in 1991 and chances of a nuclear attack faded, the U.S. dramatically reduced its nuclear stockpile and gave it less attention as military priorities shifted. The Transportation Office budget stagnated and was hit by big cuts in some years, leading to staffing shortages and delays in updating equipment. Drivers had to start working long hours of overtime, which led to morale problems and management breakdown. Let me get some water. Hold on. Despite these problems, the agency asserted that it has maintained a high level of security and has never lost a weapon, though it has been involved in several accidents. The agency denied repeated requests for interviews with top managers. It issued a statement touting its safety record. For more than 40 years, even after driving the equivalent distance of a trip to Mars and back, the cargo has never been damaged in transit, it said. Well, there's always a first time. Yet even one of its most stringent security measures was breached. The Inspector General found in 2014 when an unauthorized employee had access to a nuclear weapon on a convoy mission. According to two knowledgeable sources, the person in question had lost his human reliability rating which was based on the screening for drugs, alcohol abuse, or mental health problems, among other things. Under the agency's rules, the unidentified employee should not have been allowed on the mission. The employee was discovered at a military base and removed from the assignment. Overseers in Congress say the Transportation Office is less prepared for an attack than it used to be. That's just great. It clearly needs a reinvestment, said Representative Mac Thornberry, a Texas Republican who chairs the House Armed Services Committee, in an interview. Like other parts of the nuclear enterprise, the agency has been allowed to atrophy as the country has focused on other things. Transportation is the Achilles heel of the nuclear security. The United States has 4,018 nuclear warheads. About 450 are in the underground silos in Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota. An additional 1,000 or so are on submarines, which dock at bases in Washington and Georgia. 1,000 are on submarines. Hundreds more bombs are assigned to the U.S. Strategic Bomber Fleet, which are based in Louisiana, North Dakota, and Missouri. And a reserve stockpile sits in bunkers in the Transportation Office's headquartered in Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. Each weapon, a complex physics machine that contains as many as 6,000 parts, including tanks of gas, wheels and gears, batteries, wiring, plastic-type explosives, and radioactive material, require routine inspection, testing, and maintenance. The workers who perform those services don't travel to the weapons. The weapons go to them. Oh, that's brilliant. Who came up with that plan? They are picked up by the Transportation Office and driven to the government's sole plant for working on live nuclear warheads, the Pantex plant, outside Amarillo in the Texas Panhandle. From there, various pieces are parceled out to government plants and laboratories across the country. Uranium assemblies travel to Tennessee, plutonium parts to New Mexico, radioactive gas canisters to South Carolina, and non-nuclear classified parts to California, and firing mechanisms to Kansas City. Those parts are then returned to Texas so the warheads can be reassembled and trucked back to their silos or military bases. Listen to this. The system dates back to the 1950s and the rapid buildup of nuclear arms that accompanied the Cold War. Weapons were spread across the nation to ensure that a significant number could not be destroyed in a focused missile strike. The same went for the facilities that serviced those weapons. But exactly where they wound up and where they are today largely came down to politics, as members of Congress schemed to bring high-paying jobs to their districts. Wow. The result is an unwieldy system that requires some of the most dangerous and vulnerable components of the nation's defense system to be routinely shipped on long-distance journeys from one end of the country to the other. And the shipments, with the coming modernization effort, are only expected to multiply. It's a shock. This has a classic footprint of an antiquated and inefficient supply chain management system that was created at a time of national emergency, said Dick Valles, an industrial logistics expert at USC. Excuse me, I'm going to tighten my microphone. Okay. If this were a private operation, it would be out of business in less than 90 days, he said. No person in their right mind would subscribe to a service like this. More serious than the inefficiencies in moving so many parts is the vulnerability inherent in placing nuclear bombs on the highways, several experts said. Transportation is the Achilles heel of nuclear security, and everyone knows that, said Bruce Blair, a retired Air Force missile officer, Princeton University researcher, and founder of Global Zero, a nonprofit that seeks elimination of nuclear weapons. The danger is not a traffic accident. Even a fiery crash is not supposed to explode a warhead, but a heist. In the age of terrorism, you're taking a big risk anytime you decide to move nuclear material from into the public space over long distances via ground transportation, Blair said. Bad things happen. The high-security trailers that carry weapons present potential intruders with formidable obstacles, including shock delivery systems, thick walls that ooze immobilizing foam, and axles designed to explode to prevent a trailer from being towed away, according to independent nuclear weapons expert. The trucks will kill you, a scientist involved in the matter said. The Department of Energy recruits ex-soldiers and special operation commandos for its courier jobs, usually veterans of U.S. wars. Incoming agents trained for 21 months at Fort Chaffee in Arkansas, focusing on how to counter a roadside attack by terrorists set on stealing a weapon. The couriers must pass yearly psychological and medical assessments. Wow. You should see, they have a picture of people, security officers protecting the rig of nuclear weapons. They just look like... it's a big black truck. It's a weird black truck, but what's in they just look like soldiers going off to war. Hold on just a second. They spend months each year working out in private gyms, rehearsing tactics and training with high-powered weapons to counter an attack. The work itself is mundane and tiring, involving long hours on the road under a constant state of alert. Workers often put in 75 hours a week, according to numerous reviews of the agency. That's outrageous. Matt Hill joined the Transportation Office after 13 years in the Marine Corps and 3 deployments to Iraq. He was looking for civilian employment that would tap into his military expertise. But the job was not what Hill expected. Life on the road meant long weeks away from his family. The pay, about $73,000 a year with overtime, was less than he made in the Marines. Couriers have been quitting, many of them experienced veterans, so crucial to maintaining safety, Hill said. Finally, in February 2016, after just 3 years on the job, Hill quit too. The senior agents are all leaving, he said. People at the top won't listen. ominous symptoms of structural problems. The agency has been a target of worker complaints for years. In the 1990s, a nuclear courier named Jim Bailey alleged that the on-the-job radiation exposure had damaged his DNA and led to birth defects of his daughter. A panel of experts found that that was unlikely, but in a 67-page report issued in 1998, it laid out a number of other deep problems within the agency, finding that low morale, distrust, and poor communication among agents are the ominous symptoms of progressively worsening structural problems under working conditions. Can you believe they actually denied that it's damaged his DNA? Anybody working for these people know it's going to harm their families. 2/3 of couriers had symptoms of sleep disorder, including irritability, and cramped trucks led to knee and back ailments, the report found. Bailey was fired but sued and won a small amount of back pay and the right to return to his job. However, he never did. After the terror attack in September 11, 2001, the government turned its attention to the nation's most crucial vulnerabilities and concluded that more needed to be done to prevent terrorists from obtaining a nuclear bomb. In a 2005 letter to Congress, then Energy Secretary Samuel Baldwin called the Transportation Office a top priority and asked lawmakers for money for more agents, special weapons, tougher armored vehicles, and improved tactics. The goal was to increase staffing from about 290 to 420 couriers by 2008. But the agency never reached the level as lawmakers rejected most of the funding request. Today it aims to employ 370 agents, but has 322. So they went from 290 to 322. That's all they got. What's that? 32 extra people. Wow. The long hours couriers must work, identified as a chronic problem by the Inspector General, contribute to poor morale and a tense work environment. And how about an unsafe work environment? That does not make us safe. Lethal hauling cargo. The Office of Transportation ships nuclear warheads and customized missile trailers flanked by escort vehicles. The armed agents have a singular mission: prevent terrorists from hijacking the convoy and stealing a weapon. The trailers are outdated, set to be replaced with more sophisticated equipment, but still have self-defense capabilities to protect the cargo, even if all the agents are killed. Independent experts describe the features below. The escort vehicles. 2 or 3 escort vehicles flank the big rig and carry more than a dozen heavily armed agents, including the commander. The armed truck. The trucks have sleepers in the back with one agent usually sacked out and a driver and a communications officer. The truck can deliver powerful electric shocks to potential intruders. The trailer's walls contain foam that can ooze out to immobilize attackers. The axles are designed to explode to prevent the trailer from being towed away. Convoy vehicles are equipped with communication gears that keep them in contact with the Department of Energy's Transportation and Emergency Control Center at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico. Those tensions can boil over. Now we're coming back to this. Those tensions can boil over when the supervisor in Tennessee threatened to kill an employee. Oh, Lord. The same supervisor had been involved in 7 verbal and physical incidents that weren't reported, including uncontrolled anger, hostility, and aggression towards fellow worker and authority figures, according to a 2014 report by the Inspector General. The failure to discipline the employee posed a grave danger, the report found, concluding that it raised the risk that, quote, unsuitable individuals could be allowed to protect nuclear weapons, weapon components, special nuclear material, raising possible national security concerns. That sounds like Donald Trump, folks. As for the alcohol issues cited by the Inspector General, the agency has banned beer kegs at parties at the Fort Chaffee dormitory for trainees and mandated random alcohol testing and suspension of agents with a blood concentration above 0.02%. So you can't drink a beer and go work there. And after years of lean budgets and sometimes outright cuts, the agency requested a 19% increase in fiscal year 2017 to $283 million. But Congress didn't approve it, and the agency's funding for this year is less than it received in 2012. The agency has been able to purchase 5 new rigs in a year. More potent self-defense systems for the trucks are on the way in a trailer dubbed the Mobile Guardian, which the Energy Department is spending $670 million to develop. But the new trailers are not expected to hit the road until 2023, long after the weapons modernization program is underway. Meanwhile, the older rigs are well maintained and log fewer miles than comparable commercial trucks. The agency officials are confident that they will be able to do the job, said Al Stotts, a spokesman for the nuclear administration. They don't send them out with problems, he said. That's an interesting way to end the story. So, we're kind of super screwed. Nothing that we didn't know. Anybody who followed Sister Megan Rice and how easy it was for her to get into the Y12, the Y12 facility. And really, she went to jail, but it was completely outrageous. Let me see what this says. Actually, here it is, Stockholm Syndrome. What does this say? Republicans have Stockholm Syndrome and it's getting worse, by Max Boot, October 19th. The GOP has stopped resisting President Trump and started accelerating his race to the bottom. We have 10 minutes. How much time do I have to read this? Not enough time. But we can imagine I'll have to read that on my own, and I'll get back to you and let you know. But it's kind of what I've been thinking. They're sort of defending the abuser. But that's nothing new in the United States, which is why we have the troubled nuclear facility. I mean, this is just completely outrageous that we actually have nuclear bombs and a trucking system that puts our entire country at risk. It's completely outrageous. They just keep doing the same old thing because they don't want to say they're responsible in case it doesn't work. Wow. And you know what? That guy who got exposed by that, what's it called? Uranyl nitrate. When he starts getting sick, I guarantee you they're not going to defend him. And they're not going to tell him. It's like that guy that said he sued. He thought his daughter had birth defects caused by the nuclear. Yes. That's what happens when you work in that industry. You cannot safely do it. That's just all there is to it. There is no safe exposure to nuclear contamination. That's just the way it is. So, my goodness. We have about 10 minutes if anybody wants to call in. We are at 718-717-8106. This thing about the nuclear weapons infrastructure crumbling is a pretty serious story. Then that was actually dated March 17th. I typed in nuclear, and I guess that's what I got. So what's the news on foreign policy? Let's see what they're going to tell us. There's nothing. Close this. You know, I don't know if any of you have heard this, but January 20th is the impeach Trump day that's going to be going on. January 20th. Do you actually think we're going to make it through Christmas without him doing something completely catastrophic? I don't. I think the closer it gets to them exposing his tax returns, exposing his close financial relationship with the Russians, the way that he sort of looked aside from all the stupid stuff his people were doing, and maybe even he did it. I don't know. this is just, we're in a crazy making time. Like, this is just a really bizarre thing when the president of the United States has no respect by most of the people in the country. I mean, I have to say I didn't respect the shrub, but I didn't expect him to do things that were completely insane on a daily basis. I mean, he's such an obvious bigot. Like, the things he does, even having Bush and Obama come out and rebuking him, that was kind of a shock. Let's go to mass animal deaths. Let's see if we have any mass animal deaths being reported other than what we had. Other than what we had, we're just watching ourselves fall off the cliff here. October 17th, thousands of penguin chicks die of starvation. That was kind of sad. That was the story that we read the other day where only 2 chicks survived. And let's look at the mass bee death list. Mass bee in June 2017, 2 million bees dead after spraying crops in Sorocaba, Brazil. In Netherlands, mass mortality of bees in April. In April, there were 3 mass mortalities. In March, there were 3 mass mortalities. February, 3 mass mortalities. I wonder if it's just because this lady posted up 3 times. And what is the other one that she covers is the dying planet. She talks about what there is, what we're losing. The mass die-off of corals. The unprecedented tree die-off in Southern California, which now is up in smoke. That's the sad part, is like, literally, if we do not have the trees, we're going to have some serious problems. So let's take a look on the NRC, what it says about uranium tailings. On the NRC website, uranium tailings. They don't tell us where they go. Okay, let's take a look at public comments. Documents for public comments. Let's see what it is that we can get our 2 bits of our voice in here. NRC, let's see, this date closed on 10/27. List of approved spent fuel storage casks in America's LLC standardized horizontal modular storage units. Those are those 3/4 inch, 3/8 inch thick containers that are being approved. Those comments close on 10/27 in case anybody wants to go in onto the way you find the link. You go to the NRC webpage, www.nrc.gov/public-involvement. And then you hit the drop-down link for documents for comment. And it'll bring you right here. Scroll down, and then they have rulemaking-related documents. Naturally occurring in accelerator-produced radioactive materials. There's a document for comment there. 5 fire protection compensatory measures. That is closed in December. And then license applications. Here we go. License applications and amendments to facility operating licenses and combined licenses involving no significant hazard consideration. That period for comment is over. Entergy, number 1, Riverbend Station number 1. That is 10/23. Let's open that up in a new link and see what they're asking. I bet you they're asking for their license to be extended to a stupid, crazy day like 10 more years or something. This is the shock that they built these nuclear facilities to be like a temporary deal. 10, 20 years old, and now they expect them to stay open. License renewal. Here, let's hit this one, see what this says. Comments are not accepted. Comments are not accepted. Oh, so they've already done it. Intent to conduct scoping process and prepare environmental impact reports. That's what you can comment on. The application got it approved. So there's no commenting on that. It's just a matter of scoping and preparing the environmental impact report. So I guess that's all we get to talk about. Action. What's a summary? Okay. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission will conduct a scoping process to gather information necessary to prepare an environmental impact report statement to evaluate environmental impacts for renewing the operating license to Riverbend Unit 1. The NRC is seeking stakeholder input and action and scheduled for a public meeting. So they are definitely going to do it, right? They have these hearings. They have to do it. We have to comply with the law. They're complying. But what else is there? Let's just see. I think we have a few minutes left. I'm going to just type in Fukushima update. How about that? See if we can find anything. Probably not. We have not been getting anything that is news out of Fukushima other than everything's fine. Perfectly fine. Let's see. There's nothing that has popped up on nuclear update. WTO panel said to back Japan on Fukushima fish ban. That was October 17. Let's open that up and see what that says. Thank goodness they're going to have a fish ban. Tokyo has called South Korean restrictions on seafood imports unfair. Geneva and Seoul. The World Trade Organization panel has apparently ruled in Japan's favor in a dispute over South Korean restrictions on imports of Japanese seafood imposed after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, according to a source familiar with the matter. This is in the Nikkei Asian Review, dated September 18, 2017. Wow. Let's see. Both sides had been informed of the panel's discussion as of Tuesday. Tokyo declined to review the outcome but said it was consistent with Japan's position. A final report is expected to be made public in the spring. The WTO dispute settlement process lets parties appeal panel decisions. Ryu Young-jin, South Korea's Minister of Food and Drug Safety, said lawmakers in the National Assembly on Tuesday that the country would appeal any ruling against it by the panel in the interest of the public health. For Tokyo, a victory would mark the progress of rolling back restrictions on imports of food and other seafood from waters off eastern Japan. The South Korean ban, which Japan claims is unfair under WTO rules, was imposed in 2013. Japan tried and failed to talk the matter out with South Korea in 2015, prompting Tokyo to request the establishment of a dispute resolution. What happens next is unclear. South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported that the import ban would stay in place at least until 2019. A number of other countries have imposed similar restrictions on Japanese seafood for fear of radiation contamination, so the ruling could have a broader impact. So the WTO is saying, sorry, you cannot ban food from Japan. Wow. That is unbelievable. Well, it's not unbelievable considering that they are the nuclear liars and considering that they could care less whether people live or die. So I see that the hour has passed. We are going to have on our show on Monday Dave Parrish from Operation Save the Earth. I can't wait to have him on. He's like the world's little cheerleader in terms of getting the truth out on this very type of thing. The WTO is going to force South Korea to import seafood from Japan, which, by the way, the United States still does. So if anybody is out there thinking that they're eating safe seafood, think again. Put your courage feet on, you guys. We really need everybody to take action, and it is really imperative. You figure out what you can do and go do it. Make some consistent effort. It's going to take all of us. I don't know what your interest is, but there's lots of issues to pick on. And for me, this is the most important and the most urgent. As we've seen, they're going to force an entire nation to be killed. Put your courage feet on. We'll talk to you guys Monday. Take care.